All right, let's talk about the secret life of your groceries. Seriously, there's this hidden drama playing out in your kitchen right now. And today, we're going to figure out what's really going on.
You know how it is, right? You buy this perfect-looking bunch of bananas, and then boom, a few days later, they're all spotty and soft. It really makes you wonder, why does fresh food have this built-in expiration date? Like it has its own internal clock that we just can't ignore.
Well, the answer is actually pretty simple, but it's also kind of profound. See, from the very second that apple is picked or that carrot is pulled from the ground, the clock starts ticking. It's officially in a race against time because it's been disconnected from its life source, the plant, and a whole cascade of biological processes just kicks into overdrive.
So that brings us to our first big idea here, the race against time. We're about to dive into this really fascinating field of science called post-harvest physiology. Now, that sounds complicated, but all it really means is studying what happens to fruits and veggies after they're picked, and figuring out how we can slow down that inevitable slide into spoilage.
You can think of the scientists in this field as like expert timekeepers. They study the entire life cycle of our food after it's been harvested. And their main goal? It's to find ways to basically hit the pause button, to extend that shelf life while making sure our food stays safe, nutritious, and of course, delicious.
And look, this is way more than just some academic exercise. Getting this science right is absolutely critical. We're talking about reducing the staggering amount of food we waste globally, improving the quality and safety of the food that actually makes it to our plates, and yeah, even supporting food security for people all over the world. It is a huge deal.
Okay, so here's a mind-blowing fact for you. When you pick an apple or you buy a head of lettuce, it's not dead. Not at all. It's still a living, breathing organism. And that brings us to our next section where we're going to break down the 3 stages of its life after the harvest.
So, the journey starts with maturation. This is just when the fruit or vegetable grows to its full size on the plant. Easy enough. Next up is ripening. This is the magic part, right? It's when it develops all those amazing flavors, the vibrant colors, the perfect texture that makes you want to eat it. But then comes the final stage, senescence. And yeah, that's basically the beginning of the end. It's where things start to break down and age.
And this image of an apple really shows you that whole journey perfectly. You can see its life story laid out, starting as a tiny fruit and growing to what scientists call physiological maturity. All that means is it's fully grown. From that point, it ripens up to that peak deliciousness we all love, before, inevitably it becomes overmature and starts to decline.
Okay, time for our next section, the spoilage accelerants. So if all our produce is in this big race against time, what's flooring the gas pedal? Well, let's meet the 2 main villains in this story, a process called respiration and a hormone called ethylene. First step, let's talk about respiration. And it's exactly what it sounds like. That apple in your fridge, it's breathing. Seriously, just like us, it's taking in oxygen and burning its own stored energy, its sugars and starches, to stay alive. Now, this process keeps its cells functioning, but there's a catch. It's also burning through all the good stuff that makes it tasty and nutritious. And here is the absolute key takeaway. The faster a fruit or vegetable breathes, the faster it ages. It's that simple. A super high respiration rate means it's just torching through its energy reserves at an insane pace, and that dramatically shortens its shelf life. It literally burns itself out. This chart really drives the point home. Take a look. On one hand, you have an apple. It has a really low respiration rate. It breathes slowly, so you can store it for months. But then you have something like asparagus, which breathes incredibly fast. Its shelf life? Maybe a couple of weeks if you're lucky. That is a massive difference, and it all comes down to how fast it's breathing. All right, on to our second villain, ethylene. Ethylene is a natural gas that plants actually produce themselves. Think of it like a tiny invisible messenger, and it's flying around with one simple instruction. Hey, it's time to ripen up and get old fast. It's the hormone that triggers and accelerates that whole aging process we call senescence. And the effect of this little messenger is, well, it's dramatic. Just look at this. You can see how fresh cabbage and broccoli go from crisp to yellow and wilted really fast when they're exposed to ethylene. And by the way, this is exactly why you've heard you shouldn't store things like bananas or apples, which produce a lot of ethylene, next to sensitive veggies. This gas is a seriously powerful force. So, we've met the villains that are speeding up the clock. Now, let's flip the script and talk about the heroes. In our next section, we're looking at how we fight back.
using an incredible arsenal of scientific techniques to slow that clock way, way down. And if there is one single secret weapon in this whole fight for freshness, one thing that's more critical than anything else, it's temperature. That's it. Just chilling your produce is the single most effective way to slow everything down. It lowers that respiration rate we talked about, and it slams the brakes on the production of that aging hormone ethylene.
But temperature control is really just the beginning. The pros use all sorts of other tricks. They can control the atmosphere itself, like lowering the oxygen levels to basically put the produce into a deep sleep. They control humidity so things don't shrivel up. They use high-tech packaging that creates a perfect little microenvironment inside the bag. And they even have machines called scrubbers that literally pull that ethylene gas right out of the air. Of course, not every fruit and vegetable is the same. I mean, it's obvious, right? This chart really breaks down why a potato and a raspberry need completely different game plans. You've got your durable crops, like potatoes. They're built for the long haul, low moisture, slow breathing, tough skin. Then you've got your perishable crops, like berries. They're the sprinters. High moisture, super fast respiration, and incredibly delicate. So naturally, their shelf life is just way, way shorter.
Okay, so for our final section, let's pull back and ask the big question. Why does all this matter? Why is winning this race against time so important? Well, the impact is huge, and it stretches from the entire global food supply chain right down to the crisper drawer in your own kitchen.
On a global scale, this is about food security, plain and simple. Get this, some estimates suggest that a shocking 40% of the food we grow is lost after it's harvested. 40%. And that loss is especially tough in developing countries. So every single fruit, every vegetable we can save with better handling and storage, that's a massive win for a more sustainable food system for everyone.
And winning this race, it really starts at the very beginning. It's not just about what happens in the truck or the store. As this quote from one of our sources points out, the entire journey from the farm to your plate hinges on getting that first step absolutely right. Picking the produce at the perfect moment of maturity. That's what sets it up for the longest possible storage life. So you see, this science isn't just for big farms or giant corporations. It's for you. It's for all of us. The next time you come home and unpack your groceries, remember, you're not just putting food away. You're managing a tiny living ecosystem. So now that you know the secrets of this race against time, how are you going to store your next bag of groceries?